Ever get this, like, uneasy feeling when something just doesn't add up? Like you're putting together a puzzle and there's this one piece that just doesn't quite fit.
I know that feeling, yeah.
Well, that's what we're dealing with today. A missing piece in the world of digital forensics.
Missing piece, huh?
Yeah, but it's not just any piece. This is like the piece with the corner edges, you know? The one that kind of holds the whole thing together.
We're looking into the Karen Reed case, right? The woman accused of murdering her boyfriend.
Right.
But get this, there's a Google search on someone else's phone that's kind of thrown a wrench in the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating layer of complexity. Are you talking about the search found on Jennifer McCabe's phone?
Exactly, the how long to die in cold search.
The defense is suggesting that this search implicates McCabe somehow, maybe even pointing to her framing Karen.
Exactly. And that's where we come in, right? Because you and I both, we love to dig into this kind of digital drama.
Oh, absolutely. And luckily, we've got some expert testimony to unpack. Not just one, but two different perspectives.
Two for the price of one. First up, we've got Richard Green, and your notes say he's a certified computer examiner, so he's the one who actually went through all the data from McCabe's phone.
We're talking about a missing digital fingerprint, something called a hash value.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So walk me through this. What's the case about?
So there's this legal battle going on, Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed, and a data forensics expert, Richard Green. He's asking for more files, specifically looking into an image file from an iPhone.
iPhone, all right. What's so important about this image?
Well, that's the thing, the hash value, that digital fingerprint I mentioned. It's missing, gone. And this file is called 00000000001435991423402 e-files, full.zip, extracted from an Apple iPhone 11, no less. To help us figure out why this is such a big deal, I've got our expert here.
Thanks for having me. All right, so let's break this down. This missing hash value, why is it so crucial?
Lay it on us.
Okay, imagine this. Fingerprints at a crime scene. Those fingerprints link a person to that spot, right? A hash value, it's the digital equivalent. It connects a piece of data, like that image file, to its original form.
So are you saying that if someone even opens the image and resaves it, the hash value changes?
Exactly. Even the tiniest change to the data completely throws off the hash value. It's like a tamper-proof seal for digital information, and that's why it's so important in court. We've got Richard Green, a certified computer examiner, and he's basically saying, hold up. I need more information before I can make any conclusions about this phone data.
Interesting.
What's the significance of that, him being a certified computer examiner? I mean, does that make his words like hold more weight?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That certification, it means he's met rigorous standards when it comes to digital forensics. So when Richard Green says he needs gray key supplemental files, it's not just a casual request.
Right.
These files are really important for verifying. Like, is this phone data legit? And it raises all sorts of questions when those files aren't readily available.
So for those of us who aren't, digital detectives,
Right.
what exactly are these gray key supplemental files? I mean, it sounds like something out of a spy movie, What kind of secrets do these things hold?
Well, think of it like this.
Okay.
You know those evidence bags you see detectives use at a crime scene?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want crucial evidence contaminated, right?
Right.
So these files are kind of like those evidence bags, but for digital data. They contain information that helps ensure that the data taken from that phone hasn't been messed with.
Okay, so they guarantee that the evidence is legit, basically.
That's the idea.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But what's actually in them? What makes them so important to a guy like Richard Green in this case?
So one of the critical things is the hash value. And you can think of this as like a digital fingerprint for a file.
Okay.
Any change, like even one character, changes that fingerprint completely.
Wow.
These values are recorded during that entire extraction process, and they're basically saying this is exactly what the data looked like at this moment.
It's like a timeline for the data.
Yeah. You can track and see, has anything changed? Has it been messed with?
Interesting. So
And that's why Richard Green needing those files is kind of a big deal, because it suggests maybe he doesn't have the full picture.
Right, okay.
He's working with a puzzle, and it's like some of the pieces might be missing or even like in the wrong spot. Olivia Lambeau, she's been all over this case. She's calling this missing hash value a huge GE red flag, and even took to social media to ask who removed the hash value and why.
Yeah, I've seen those posts.
So what makes her so concerned?
Well, think about it. Let's say someone wanted to, plant evidence on that phone. If they messed with the data before the hash value was taken, there'd be no way to prove it ever happened.
Wait, so you're saying someone could tamper with evidence and we'd be totally clueless?
Theoretically, yes. Although I will say, manipulating data without leaving a trace, not a walk in the park, takes serious skills. But without that hash value, it's almost impossible to rule out tampering completely.
And this is where Lambo's Google search theory comes in. Okay, so we've got this image, potentially tampered with, a missing hash value, and now an expert witness, Ian Whiffin, brought in to analyze the data. This is where things get even more interesting.
Oh, this is going to be good. Tell me more.
So get this in his testimony. Whiffin straight up says he didn't have access to any hash information when he reviewed the evidence.
Wait, what? He's a digital forensics expert, and he didn't have that information.
Seems that way. Which makes you wonder, how much weight can we actually give his analysis? He's basically trying to authenticate a document without checking its seal or watermark.
Yeah, that's a problem. So the expert who's
Yeah.
supposed to be analyzing this really important evidence
Yeah.
didn't even have all the pieces.
Yeah, it's kind of a red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, right?
It definitely raises some eyebrows. You got to think, remember those gray key supplemental files?
Mm-hmm.
That's where that hash information lives.
Okay.
And without them, it's like trying to verify a document without a signature.
Right.
It makes the whole thing questionable.
So not only did Richard Green, the first expert, need more info, but the expert who actually went in and looked at the data was missing stuff too.
Seems like it. Yeah.
That's a whole other level.
It definitely adds another layer to this whole thing, for sure.
This is like we're in a real life episode of CSI Cyber or something. Missing files, data manipulation, what's next? Like a secret code hidden in the metadata or
Yeah.
something.
Well, you're not far off. The possibility of manipulation is a real concern, right?
Right.
There are ways to manipulate that data and even cover your tracks. That's why having that chain of custody, those gray key supplemental files and the hash values, that's so crucial. It's like having a security camera on your evidence locker.
So to be clear, we've got one expert saying, I can't do my job without these files.
Right.
And then another expert who did look at the data saying, oh, by the way, I didn't have all the information I needed because these files were missing.
It's a mess.
Is it just an oversight, or is this did someone lose these files on purpose? It's starting to feel a little bit like a John Grisham novel.
You're telling me. The lack of those files, it's not just a technicality.
Yeah.
This raises big questions about how this evidence was handled, and that could have a domino effect on the whole case.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big deal for sure. It's a bit unsettling to think about, to say the least.
Okay.
But is it really that easy to tamper with data? Seriously.
Let's just say it's not as easy as just hitting delete. During Whiffin's cross-examination, he was asked about this very thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, could someone delete data and then, I don't know, just renumber the remaining files to cover their tracks?
Sneaky? But I guess it makes sense. And what did Whiffin say about that?
He admitted it's technically possible, but, and this is important, he really emphasized that it would take someone with a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill, to pull it off without getting caught.
So we're not talking about some random person with basic computer skills. It would have to be someone who really knows their stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. It'd be like trying to forge a masterpiece. The tiniest mistake and the whole thing falls apart.
So think of this hash mechanism, as you call it, as a really, really sensitive alarm system.
Exactly, built into the very fabric of the digital world. And every single bit of data, it's got its own unique signature, a hash value. Any change at all, no matter how small, it trips that alarm. The hash value changes. Game over.
So even if someone did manage to change the data itself, that change would still leave a mark. They couldn't hide the fact that the hash value was different.
Precisely. And that brings us to Whiffin's next statement. And honestly, it's kind of unsettling. He admits that while, yeah, this hash mechanism is pretty strong, it's not completely foolproof,
Uh-oh.
right? There are ways to potentially get around these safeguards, he says. But, and this is a big but, it takes an incredibly deep understanding of digital forensics. We're talking manipulating data at the most basic level.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Are you saying that someone with enough expertise could tamper with this evidence and we might not even know it happened?
That's the scary part. It really raises questions about how reliable digital evidence really is, especially in a case like this, where that hash value is nowhere to be found. So it's not just a missing file, it's missing information.
Yeah. And it's really important to understand.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about someone maybe deleting files, which is, like we said, a huge deal.
Right.
But actually changing the data itself.
Okay, now hold on.
Yeah.
How is that even possible? It sounds like something, some digital magic trickery or something.
Okay, so imagine this.
Okay.
Someone gets to that phone data before it's even, taken for analysis.
Right.
And they just make a few tiny changes, right? Like maybe they mess with some timestamps or even like change the order of messages just a little.
Okay. That's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It is a little bit, yeah, because it raises questions about how much we can trust any of this digital evidence, right?
Yeah. And the implications for a case like this, I mean, it's got to be huge.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't trust that the evidence is real, then the whole case is kind of shaky, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how can you move forward?
It makes you think about all those crime shows, where they're pulling up phone records, and it seems so simple, so cut and dry.
Yeah. If only it were that easy.
Right. But the reality is, there's a lot more to it.
It's way more complicated than they show on TV. In reality, this stuff takes time, a lot of attention to detail, and you got to be a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
You can't just take everything at face value.
It's like they say, don't believe everything you see on TV.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to this digital evidence.
Exactly.
And that's why you need those independent experts, right? People who can look at this stuff objectively, make sure it's legit, and then explain it in a way that makes sense.
Okay, so it's not just about catching the bad guys, it's about making sure the system itself is on the up and up.
Exactly. This case just shows how important those procedures are, that chain of custody, making sure things are verified. It all matters. It's a big wake-up call for everyone.
It really is. It makes you realize how much we depend on all this digital stuff these days.
Our whole lives are on these devices now.
It's not just court cases, it's banking, talking to people, it's everything.
It's true.
And if we can't trust that information, then where does that leave us?
Yeah.
You know?
That's the big question, isn't it? It really makes you think about the future of, digital privacy and security and how we make sure this stuff is used for good and not for something else. So then, what does this all mean for Karen Reed's case? It's a lot to wrap our heads around, that's for sure. We've got this crucial piece of evidence, but we can't be 100% sure it hasn't been tampered with. And now we have an expert who's basically saying there are ways around even the toughest security measures.
It really makes you think twice, huh?
It does. So what does all of this mean for Karen Reed? If I were on that jury, I don't know how much weight I could give to that image, knowing it might not be as reliable as it seems.
That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? It's like, we're at this crossroads, we've got all this amazing technology, it's everywhere, right? But with all that power, we have to be sure the information is accurate. We have to be able to trust it.
It's almost a philosophical question now.
It is. How do we make sure things are real in a world where information can be, manipulated? And this case really highlights that tension.
It's not just about the tech stuff anymore.
Exactly. As digital evidence becomes more and more common, we have to be super careful about how it's handled, how it's verified. We can't just assume it's accurate.
Because otherwise, the systems we rely on, the ones that are supposed to protect us,
They start to crumble.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If we can't even trust digital evidence in court, where the stakes are so high, what does that mean for everything else? Medical records? Financial transactions, I mean.
Our entire digital lives.
It's a scary thought. We started with one missing hash value, and now it feels like we're questioning, the foundation of our whole digital world.
It's a lot to process, for sure. But, maybe that's a good thing. This case, as unsettling as it might be, it's a reminder that we can't take digital security for granted. We need strong protections, strict verification processes.
And a little bit of healthy skepticism can't hurt either.
Absolutely. This whole thing has got me thinking, if these files can go missing, and you can change data without anyone knowing, how can we be sure this isn't just like the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
Most people, they don't know the first thing about analyzing this data, right?
Right.
So we have to be able to trust the process.
Okay.
Law enforcement, those forensic examiners, even the tech companies, they all have a role in making sure things are done right.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys, it's about the system itself being trustworthy.
Exactly.
Okay.
This case, it shows just how important it is to have those procedures in place, making sure nothing gets messed up, that chain of custody, double-checking everything, all of it.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
We've got to stay ahead of the game when it comes to this digital stuff.
Click.
So the next time you hear about a case with digital evidence, remember that missing hash. It might seem like a small thing, a technicality.
But as we've seen, it can make all the difference.
It reminds us that sometimes is the tiniest detail that reveals the biggest truth. This has been a fascinating deep dive, and I'm sure we'll all be thinking about this case and the implications of that missing hash.
We've gone through the ins and outs of this case, looked at how complicated this tech is, and honestly, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. It makes you wonder, in a world where we're living more and more of our lives online, how can we make sure that digital evidence is used responsibly? That's something for all of us to think about.
Truths and stories gotta collide. Alibis get swept aside. I got proof that can't be denied. The data don't lie, people do. Waves crashing, secrets in the tide. Facts and numbers side by side. Through the chaos I will abide. The data don't lie, people do. Look at the records, feel the vibe. Digits and bytes come alive. I stand tall with nothing to hide. The data don't lie, people do. Friends may twist and tongues may tie. Plausible tales shape the sky. In the end you can verify. The data don't lie, people do. It's in the matrix beyond the eye. Hard truth that's flying by. Evidence you can't defy. The data don't lie, people do. Look at the records, feel the vibe. Digits and bytes come alive. I stand tall with nothing to hide. The data don't lie, people do. The vibe, digits and bytes come alive. I stand tall with nothing to hide. The data don't lie, people do.